All right, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another session of our weekly live streams. Thank you for joining. Before starting, I just want to remind everyone that you can watch the stream on multiple social media platforms. We are streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. And also a reminder that this session is being recorded. So if you would like to watch it again or share it with your fellow PMs or anyone within the product community, you can head over to our YouTube channel where a recording of this will be present. I do want to say that we have a Slido running for you, and this is going to be for you to give us any insights, any feedback, and also to ask questions directly to our speaker. Now, with that, allow me to introduce the speaker for today. Something very exciting. We have our very own Mirela Mus, who is the founder and CPO at Product People. She's going to be talking about a very interesting topic today. And we're going to be discussing, or rather, talking about the aspect of being AI enabled and moving to AI native. All right, so from AI enabled to AI native, Mirela will be joining us and talking about that today. Maybe a bit of introduction about myself, just a little bit. So my name is Mirza. I am a associate product management consultant at Product People. I have a backgrounds of about 5 to 5.5 years in product management and product operations management, having worked with various companies in different industries and different life cycles of their journeys within B2C, B2B, B2B2C as well. Right. So before we do actually move over to Mirella, just a quick update or just a quick note about what we do at Product People. So essentially, Product People provides interim product management and product operations and transformation acceleration services. We do this via our in-house staff, and essentially, this is how the organization, we make money. But then we also try to give back to the community as best as we can. So for that, we host or conduct these free events and talks, one of them being this live stream, but also physical events all across Europe, partnering with some of the largest PM communities across the region. And we do also have our own LinkedIn presence as well, having about more than 60,000 members as well. All right. As we do come into the talk and the conversation itself, there is something that we would like to do just before that, which is that we would like to get to know the audience, right? We want to hear from you. We want to get to know you a little bit better so that we can also maybe um, tailor the conversation a little bit as well to suit the audience here today. So the question that I would love to ask is, where would you say that your product or your team currently sits on the AI spectrum? We'll go over the options as well, but to answer your question, please go over to slido.com. We have the code there on the screen, 3111431, or you can also scan the QR code as well. So I'll just repeat the question. Where would you say your product or your team currently sits on the AI spectrum? Option A, not really using AI yet. Option B, using AI to improve internal workflows. Option C, adding AI features to existing products. Or option D, building AI first or AI native products. Uh, would I will wait a couple of minutes here, maybe one or two. I want to get some answers in. If you have, do let me know. Please answer through the Slido. We would love to get to know our audience a little bit better and see where they are. We will share those answers with you as well on within the live stream right now. We'll just take a minute to see how many responses we can get. Maybe I can repeat the question here one more time for our users. We just want to know where you would say that your product or your team currently sits on the AI spectrum, right? And that spectrum is going to be that either you're not really using AI yet, maybe you're using AI to improve internal workflows, maybe you're adding AI features to existing products, or maybe you're building actual AI first or AI native products. Again, you can go to slido.com, you can use the code, or you can scan the QR code. All right, I see we are getting some answers in, but would love to get a few more. That would be awesome if we can get them in. All right. I think we have also, all right, we're getting a couple more answers. All right, so let's have a look at what we have. So, if I were to rank them, there is a bit of fairly even split, fairly. So, 20% of the audience has selected option D. So, 20% of the audience says that they are building AI first or AI native products. That's pretty cool to see. 40% of the audience says that they are building or adding AI features to existing products. Okay. And then we have 40% of the audience that says they are not really using AI yet. Okay. So not using AI yet. And we have the remaining that says that they are using AI to improve internal workflows. All right. So I would say we have, well, which is actually going to be not anyone at all, to be very honest. But all right, I think we have the majority of our audience sitting in option A or C, not really using AI or adding AI features to existing products. Okay, cool. All right. Maybe now, if I can move over to an interesting part, or the interesting part of our live stream here today. So, Mirela, I would love to hand it over to you very shortly. Just a very quick introduction. So, yes, if you do not know already, Mirela is the founder and CPO of Product People, which we call the premier destination of product management within Europe. Mirela has worked with companies like Zalando, Omeo, DeepL, and the World Health Organization. About her background, her background is primarily in computer science with an MBA, and she's been doing product management for over 12 years. Half of them in leadership roles, leading more than 50 plus people. She's based in Berlin since 2015, and under off time, she spends time hiking, reading sci-fi, and playing board games and painting. All right, Mirela, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Mirza, and also for your input on this presentation. As for people who can check a bit on the lower right part of the screen, Mirza is one of the people who contributed with examples from this deck. I'm happy some of you are building AI native products. Also saw that others are adding AI capabilities to existing ones, and some optimize internal workflows. And then for the ones that are not doing anything at all yet, then you're in for a treat, because you'll have more new things. So how do you differentiate between AI native and AI enabled? If you remove the AI, do you still have a product or not? So if you would remove the AI capabilities from Cloud or ChatGPT or Gemini, then you don't have a product anymore. Whereas if you remove the Meta AI add-on from WhatsApp, then you still have WhatsApp as a fully functioning product, maybe even better without it, since that's a pretty useless function for now. I may be very wrong in a month or so if they get better, as these things change pretty fast. Mirza already gave an intro about myself. So I founded Product People about 6 years ago. We're over 40 people currently. And I also invest or build cash flow companies via Litecoin Capital once in a while, aside from the product work. So the product background has really helped me into figuring out how to make businesses work relatively fast. Some of the examples that I will list here are from our clients. We can name some clients, we cannot name others, and I will specify that. Then one thing to summarize what we do, we're at intersection of management consulting and the development agencies. So it means we actually care about the outcomes of your products and things that we work on, while at the same time being quite hands-on and less high level than how you'd see in the traditional consulting firms. And our emphasis is on speed and pretty fast turnarounds. So now how can this apply to you? I've segmented the talk into sections. One as an individual contributor, ideally not getting fired in the age of AI, but even more so, maybe getting promoted. And the other part is for companies, how not to die. So one of the things I've also tried out for myself, I try to use the top 3 models or top 2, depending on like how much time I have, and even get them for mundane tasks. This is not an example of mine. This is something I found on Twitter, but found it quite interesting because it's not a use case I thought about of giving it a screenshot and telling me where there's a specific book. I do use it for a lot of other things. Like, for example, I did a workshop at a conference, and there was a plain printed list with the name of the people that attended my workshop. So I just gave that screenshot to Cloud Opus 4.6, and it came back with the LinkedIn profiles of those people. And where it could not crawl them, it just gave me already a pre-search term. And then it was pretty easy to go and add the people that were there after fixing 2 small mistakes it had made. So there are a lot of these things where you can use it as your off-the-shelf assistant. For some things it will fail, as some things it will work surprisingly well. But I think our job as product folks is to also figure this out and just build a muscle memory. Another part, this is not my example, but I've also personally played with OpenClaw, and it was good that I saw a lot of the horror stories online, because I set it up on a separate Mac Mini, created its own accounts, email address, and a few other things, so that it doesn't go like and randomly deletes my emails, which happened with someone who specifically instructed it not to. And it was a data person for one of the bigger tech companies, or in this kind of funny case of buying some random things. Most of the gains we've seen so far, and also are pretty easy for you to test, unless your organization really blocks from installing note-taking, or you're not on the Google Suite, where you could also just use Gemini, would be the meeting note-taking, making data analysis easier. So this is either with the off-the-shelf LLMs, or even like setting up more complex plugins. Other cases, preparing for interviews or important meetings, or starting to prepare updates, or summarizing updates. So all this stuff that would generally require manual work. One thing I would advise against is part of the user interviews of not really being there. So I think it's still a lot of value in being in the user interviews, reading the raw transcript, not just the summary, as that's probably the last thing I would automate, and especially in areas where you have low customer volume, like B2B SaaS or larger enterprise clients. The other part we've done quite a lot, and I definitely saw this take off, is prototyping and vibe coding. So you have on the right side the example with Figma Make that our PMs did at a cybersecurity client, and on the left side, payroll and tax engine prototype with Cursor for a client in the maritime industry. The backstory on the Cursor prototype, it's even way cooler, because this company, it was very hard to unlock even half of the time from a designer and an EM to make this work, and to have it as something to demo to potential clients in Southeast Asia. And with that, we did it on our own, just by using the logos and customer colors of the company. It was fully working, and also quite fun for the team to build. It also showed internally that sometimes it's not worth having very granular allocation discussions, and that sometimes people could validate things on their own, and while stepping back from day-to-day work. This is example from Cloud Code, where another one of our PMs at a ride-sharing company was building the flow for ID verification and thought it's a bit more fun to do this by prototyping it. I think it's also useful for you as a PM, not necessarily to take over what design would do, right? This is like not the smoothest user experience or not the cutest prototype you've seen, but for you to think through the flows, like what's the best case scenario, what are the failure modes, what should the errors messages be, which kind of errors are we going to encounter, which kind of success messages, what does it happen in specific cases, and also to have like a good handover for devs. And when people ask, will this prototyping take over the designer work? I don't think so. Not fully. Even very good design and user experience is going to become more important, but it can take over automating some of the communication and solving for misunderstandings with the development team or with design, or a lot of this back and forth of like moving this button here, renaming the copy there. That wasted everyone's time. Another downside that is created by the fact that you can write code relatively fast with code assistance, you can prototype relatively fast, is that testing, either testing this with the users or testing the whole model or the AI-enabled product becomes the actual bottleneck. So this means you need to set up AI evals, you need to figure out how you do best to determine the quality of the output for non-deterministic systems. And you could also fail a lot faster because if you release a new model, then this has impact across your users. So this whole release management still remains super important, and one of the bigger bottlenecks here, and an even more important one to guardrail. It's important to also remember that you still should add it if it's valuable. So does it create user value? Does it bring more revenue? Does it save money for the company? I think the Meta AI embed in WhatsApp is one of the most hilarious examples of, hey, we need to do something AI, and then it's not that useful. So far I've tried a few use cases with it, and now I just like largely ignore it. This is a screenshot from me, because I didn't find anything that it could be used for, which kind of defeats the purpose of why Meta was doing it. I do understand the shareholder pressure and the need to do something, but I feel like the go-to-market for this has failed so far. And going on the initial part of like how to not get fired and ideally even promoted, figuring out like what is, at least for now, an important strength that you have as a human, treating LLM inputs as well as requests from people and other stakeholders at suggestion, not command. Figuring out this whole laterally managing up part, right, which is point 2 and 3. So disagree without being disagreeable, don't surprise your boss, decide fast, learn fast. And then on the technical side, understanding what's possible or not with non-deterministic systems so that you can communicate effectively with engineering and get a good sense of costs and timelines. One of the things that won't change is that you need to still show how you bring revenue and growth for the things that you are working on, especially since cost of credits goes up quite fast, and the newer or the bigger the model is, the higher the cost of running it. I love this thing from Westworld, where if you imagine that this person is the customer, some don't care if it's using AI or not, or cannot tell the difference. And I think this removes the bias of, oh, because we said it has AI, customers will think it's better. No, I think people will still optimize for their jobs to be done, and we care more about that. And this is also what we should care for. Now, as a company, what you want to avoid is first an outside context problem. So is this something that will blindside you and will remove the need for your business model, or will fully disable it once certain capabilities of the LLMs become more mainstream? I found this outside context problem as a good paradigm for it. Some questions you can consider is, how would AI kill your product or your company? Where is your data layer? Are you having potential garbage in, garbage out situations? What's your moat, competitive advantage now that features could be easy to copy? And then if 3 is true, then what is the cost of switching for your customers or companies you work with? That could be for the case that a new company could just clone the core functionalities of your product. How long is the sales cycle? How much does it take the customer to switch? What's the data portability? What are the legal risks? And then other things where you are embedded in their flows. And this plus go-to-market has become now way more important. There are some directions in which LLMs are going. I'm even considering removing these slides because everything changes so fast that I feel it's the moment I do it, it's outdated. But we do see the verticalization of intelligence. We see the LLMs as a distribution unlock, right? This is also why a lot of people are fighting towards editing Reddit pages or doing generative engine optimization and a lot of these other things, because now a lot of startups live and die, or companies, based on LLMs mentioning them when the user queries for certain topics. You see also hyper customization for each user, so there's no reason why the UI shouldn't adapt to whatever your view of the world is and tone. So this means that you'd have AI agents create interfaces on the fly. We saw Google has the A2UI project. We see also Cloud Code and Cowork, that you asked it something and it already builds an HTML page with the answer. And then all the MCP apps that are out there, some done by Anthropic and some by third parties. You also see that voice has become a stronger use case. So ideally not using a screen or the optimization towards AI agents. So there are a few also things going there. Although the agents part, at least we'll see in the next examples, we've seen more successfuls were the purely internal ones due to different risks. There's a State of AI website that you can check for emerging trends. Aside from the AI agents, smaller, more efficient models, AI used for science, and recursive self-improvement were some of the top options. One part I would caution or advise for is making your systems resilient towards switching. So it should either be easy to migrate from one model, one foundational model to the other, or have the system intelligent enough that it switches. First of all, there's no clear winner yet. And with each new model, it feels like Gemini 3.1 was great a few months ago, then Opus 4.6 came over from Anthropic, and that was the latest and greatest. Now OpenAI has a new model. It seems to be on the same level or better at some use cases and worse at others. So until there's something you can see your model being the best at, rather not do a super strong commitment. And the other part is the regulatory concern around where the data is stored, and some of the political turmoil that has happened in the last weeks around Anthropic and OpenAI. Despite Anthropic being better at coding and a few other use cases, whereas Gemini and ChatGPT are better at others. So my advice would be not tying yourself or embedding too much a model. From our case at Product People, we use Notion AI, which then gives us access to 3 of these models, and at the same time deletes the data and stores it in the EU. We found that as a subscription optimization option, and for data protection reasons for our clients and ourselves. You, of course, could find your own way of solving for these challenges. And now, since I spoke about AI agents, and this is something that interests people, we have a use case from a fintech client where we use Glean and a combination of other tools for internal AI agents. The scope for this was product operations, using the term broader, into making the PMs and devs better, saving them times. Main use case, devil's advocate for tickets and PRDs, comparing with regulatory compliance requirements, as well as like what's the best in class ticket and PRD, what is missing there. And this way it also helps junior and mid-level PMs be as good at this as seniors, as well as maintain internal consistency while not having someone chase them around to do it. In larger companies, sometimes it was product ops or program management that used to be like, oh, you didn't add this to your story if it's a maintain, invest, or innovate, and we did this for CapEx or getting tax credits. Now this is all automated. Another one is figuring out whom you should ask for input on documents. So we're talking about a company that's over 5,000 people over here in lots of markets and in a regulated field. So this stakeholder chaser figures out who's who and tags them to give feedback. We estimated as a 2-hour per week time save. We couldn't estimate how much time it saves by not blocking various initiatives or having work redone. Then once these Jira tickets pass to a new state and are ready for dev, then another custom AI agent would pull the relevant libraries and start doing this work that the devs would have to manually do themselves sometimes. It also saves them time with incident ticket triage and prioritization and escalation. There's something that doesn't fully run automatically because we didn't want to spam C-level with some updates that then need to be rewritten, but it does. We have another agent that pre-runs these updates, so that they could also have a deep dive, or they could just get a summary of what happened. Another one maps business stakeholders by seniority, expertise, area of interest, which is tied in with the stakeholder chaser. So we estimate that this frees up a lot of time, makes internal communication more transparent, and eliminates bottlenecks later in the dev and release cycle. This is some examples that we've done internally as well as for our clients. For example, tracking CapEx and OpEx impact. In countries like Germany, in Europe, you can get tax credits back for development time for features you've built that are proprietary to your company, not run maintenance type of tasks. But to get this, then you need to properly document what you've done. And the first part of documenting is to having up-to-date Jira, epics, and tickets. So this now you can do a lot easier with a few automations. Then the other part I've mentioned earlier with Notion AI. There are lots of marketing content use cases, so I won't go too much into that because probably saw a lot of posts on this. And the other part is saving time of operations folks as since I got slightly disconnected, so the last part I was mentioning, using Notion AI as an internal ops and assistant for the team. So if someone asks, like, what's the process for getting vacation days? What's the process for reimbursement? How should I use Slack? Then Notion AI would figure out which page this refers to and give that to the person. In the past, this used to be back and forth around the channel of that person, or operations would get lots of queries that were just repeated. I'll go back to one of my favorite people who writes a lot about this. When such things work, they feel like magic. When they don't, they feel really stupid. This is also why I think everyone should try a lot of these use cases on their own, and at the same time revisit the use cases a few months later. Because when I talk with people and they say, "Oh no, but I've played with LLMs and they make this mistake and that mistake," it's either an older model and some things were fixed, or it's a free version, which definitely has a subpar output. So if you're going to use something, use a paid version and try to figure out which LLM works better for you from the top three. This is me. I'm happy to get your questions.
All right. Thank you, Mirela. Thank you so much. Thank you for your insights. And that actually was a very informative session. And I'm sure the audience would have also benefited from that discussion. All right. Now, to the audience, we will be moving towards the Q&A session as well. For that, would love for everyone to use the Slido. You can scan the code, or you can go on over to slido.com and enter the code there, 3111431. To leave us your questions. We will be answering them as much as we can within this live stream. So time is limited. Would love to get your questions in as well. Now, before we do move over to the Q&A session, I would like to cover a few things with you all here today. And I'd love to talk about some of the use cases that we product people as an organization cover, and just to get a better idea of what we do. So if I could, we would club it into three main use cases. Number one being interim or fractional supports. So product people, we cover permanent positions in the times of, let's say, an organization is hiring, which can take about 3 to 9 months to fill. So we can cover that time period. We can come in. Parental leaves or any other important or urgent initiatives that an organization would love to capitalize on, product people can come in with our expertise and cover for that period. Secondly, we can also, or we do also coach or advise as consultants, product coaches, program managers, or even product ops leads as well. So we can come in to coach your internal teams, appraise their skills, even run personal development plans and improve their performance cycles. We can lend the expertise here as well. Or even if an organization needs to create or optimize their current existing processes or programs, then that is also something where product people can come in to help you transition from, let's say, one area of your product of your organization's journey, either from hypergrowth or at scale. And thirdly, we do also come in for discovery assistance and expertise. So if an organization would love to understand, what is the next big thing in the market, where do I go from here? What do I need to look at? What do I need to prioritize? Or even what are my weaknesses? As Mirela mentioned today, how do you know if AI could eliminate your product? Product people can also come in to assist with that discovery process. All right. Let's take a minute to look at or talk about some of the clients that we have worked with in the past. Some of our B2C clients, some very fairly famous. I'm sure you've heard of some of them. Some of the big names, probably eBay, FreeNow, Blinkist. We've had a positive relationship with many of these clients. And even in other spaces, we have worked with the World Health Organization, Localize, Remote, and others as well. Talking about some of the internal statistics at Product People, we have supported over 690 cross-functional teams coming from more than 130 clients from various parts of their own journeys. They could be scale ups, they could be startups, they could be publicly listed organizations. Product people has been there. The current team actually it also comprises of 40 product leaders and product managers, all in-house employees. They are in-house so that we ensure a very high standard and a very high quality of service for all of our clients. And something to add to that as well, 59% of the team are currently women, and also the leadership team it consists of women as well by 60%. So that is kind of one of our prouder moments, and as well, and part of the recruitment process, that we prioritize the skills that the individual has over the CV that they provide. So we've seen how that can also change our hiring dynamics. Now, as we do get to the Q&As, I really do hope we have a lot of questions, and I think we do. But the code is up here again. If there are any questions that you would love to ask Mirela, please do send them in. You can use the website slido.com. You can scan the QR codes, and we will share your question here in the live stream for Mirela to answer. All right. Then perhaps as the questions are coming in, I can move to the first one that we have. All right, question number one. You mentioned the example of AI in WhatsApp being useless. In your point of view, is it because it is not useful, AI in WhatsApp, or because the implementation was done wrong?
I didn't find a use case that works for me. I saw this question come in and I Googled Meta AI on WhatsApp useless, and I came across a few Reddit threads. I don't know if it was a data limit problem for them, that they couldn't read your WhatsApp messages, because there's another thread where people are upset that it told the user that it can read all the messages. So I'm not sure if this is a problem in Europe where we have stronger data protection laws. So basically, I can't get it to find anything through my messages. So I thought it was a better search function from my WhatsApp chats rather than me thinking of a keyword. It can kind of come up with some insights. If you're on the Google Suite, sometimes you go to a Google Drive, or if you're on Slack, you go to a Slack channel or Slack thread, and you can summarize what happened there. So I was hoping it's something that saves my time or gives me something useful. Whereas I saw some of the canned prompts it has was like, help me write my CV. So maybe that's the user base. I don't know. I wouldn't write my CV in WhatsApp. I have no idea what they did there. They're not our client, but if they want to become our client, I'm happy to help.
All right. I think we can move over to the next question as well. The next question would be, what new skills or mindset shifts do product managers need to succeed in an AI native environment?
Probably critical thinking is super important, especially since those LLMs are very confident when they answer things. The other part that remains is working with people and figuring out how you manage expectations, especially people who you're on the same level or higher level than you, and strong commercial acumen. And I'm including here as well product sense, because sometimes people throw around product sense as if it's like completely disconnected for how a company or business works. I think that's also combined with good empathy and good business sense, because you can't make something that's just getting traction with the user, but it's a complete mess for the company, because then it means it's not fully figured out. So those three, comms, very good critical thinking, and business sense, including product sense.
All right. Thank you, Mirela. I think I would also strongly agree with that. I was having a conversation with one of the senior consultants within the organization about this topic as well, and they also mentioned that AI or not, if we as product managers or product consultants don't have the basic, I would say, foundational level of skills and mindsets, let's say empathy, reading between the lines of what your user or your consumer is actually saying or what they really need, AI or not, if that's not solid, your product might still fail. All right. The next question: is there any AI native product that you can remember right now that really impressed you in the last couple of months?
I do feel that cloud cowork and to some extent cloud code is just way stronger than Gemini 3.1. When Gemini 3.1 came out, I immediately switched from chat because initially I was just running queries in both of them, and I wasn't that onboarded with Claude. And then later on, I started trying in between Claude and Gemini, and I do like that it's a bit of this above and beyond, like when you work with a person that just kind of does what they're told, and it doesn't do a bit more. I felt that having cowork, if you also especially set it up quite well with the context and have it a lot of other things, it can be quite useful, and you have less things to redo from it. And of course, it's also uses up your credit limits faster, but it does feel like it gave me better results whenever I need to go deeper into some topics.
All right. Thank you, Mirela. Okay. Maybe one more question here, and I think this is a very interesting one. Mirela, you mentioned being an investor as well. So, does moving towards AI native products change the way companies think about business models and value creation?
I could give the perspective of the private equity folks that we work with, especially later stage investors, because I think that covers a larger swath of companies than the ones that I work with at via Lighton Capital. So private equity has been looking at AI going from LLMs to diverse optimizations, mostly for cost reduction. So could you save 10 to 20% of the cost on one hand, the other part for the risk of the business not being relevant at all? Then for the VC-backed companies is more of a question of, can they go to market? Can they grow faster now that it's easier to write code? Can they disrupt any of the incumbents? There's also another bigger talk around AI sovereignty, and that you can see all over the news. So I won't go into this topic because I'm not the most qualified there, and it also requires higher investment. And then I would cover for Lighton Capital, we went the opposite way because we know that in Europe, there aren't that exciting exits as you have in the States, and that it will take a while to figure out who wins or who loses from this game. There are still a lot of basic businesses that a lot of people don't cover. And you hear this podcast about people buying laundromat businesses in the US or brick and mortar-ish type of businesses that have strong sustained demand, but no one looks at because they're not sexy. So these are some of the things that we covered via Lighton Capital, like a digital first funeral home chain, because sadly people are still dying. And there's a bit of a generational shift. There's quite a fragmented market, at least in Germany. It got consolidated in other places. Same for doctors' offices. Most of the doctor offices just treat diseases. There are very few proactive doctor offices that most people could afford, not a luxury thing in Switzerland and so on. So that's why we finance the longevity private practice out of Berlin that can also treat international patients or patients that are not there. So those are more the approaches that we took. So I covered like what does PE does, what does VCs that we work with at Product People, and what we did at Lighton Capital, considering we don't have the funding that private equity has, but still wanted to make a dent.
All right. Okay, well, let's throw in one more question here. And as I read this, I can't help but not think of AI in WhatsApp. Mirela, what's the best way to push back when stakeholders are pressing to have AI features just to have them?
Then maybe look at what you already know is valuable to do, and if there's something you could apply AI to from what you've already decided it's worth doing. right? So that's up to you. And I understand that sometimes C-level is pressured by their investors. Also talking with the private equity folks that we work with, one of the partners there was in charge of, I quote, AI agenda. And I was like, what's the AI agenda? Well, we ask all companies to report whenever they do board updates to have a separate line what they're doing regarding AI. And of course, then you will be asked, because they are asked by the people who can fire them, what are you doing regarding AI? How are you making more money? How are you saving costs? But this doesn't mean you need to do stupid things. You could still figure out a way to automate some of your work, automate some internal work, put something in there, run something as a test. You still have way more agency than you think you do. So might as well have fun, right? This is also a good CV bullet point for you. I've heard even of the opposite problem where a product director was upset that their designer was spending too much time vibe coding than talking to the users. And I said, yeah, of course it makes sense from an incentive perspective, because vibe coding is a CV point and they can brag about it on LinkedIn and so on. Whereas talking to users is the thing you should do and very important, but no one claps about it, as it's like, oh yeah, but we talked to user 5 years ago, right? There's nothing shiny or new about it. So that would be my take. Yeah, you understand also the angle where they're coming from. What are the timelines? Do they want to do it for show? Are they serious about it? And then figure out how that fits into what you're building and what you think is relevant.
All right. Mirela, let's just take one last question here. And this is maybe a point, let's say, for product leaders. Product leaders or product organizations that are early in their adoption journey of AI products or AI native workflows. How would those product leaders help disseminate information towards the actual champions who are going to drive the change within the organization, moving towards a more product native approach?
Start with a few people who are doing it, and then try to use them as a lighthouse. Give also some independent autonomy where possible, because at least I noticed that's worked at product people. We were not dogmatic about, oh, you should vibe code only with Lovable or with this and with that. Like some people took up cursors, some people did this, some people did that, and then we saw that over time, Cloud Code now became the best one to do some things with. But then Figma Mate is also quite useful right now, and has better enterprise adoption. So don't get stuck on a specific thing. Give people some time and budget to experiment, figure out like where you put the constraints and how you measure what they're doing. And there are like some use cases for which you can see traction relatively fast, right? Especially where you have pattern recognition, like customer support, fraud cases, and so on. And there are areas where it's a bit riskier if your model hallucinates or does random things like payments or anything that can impact the customer quite directly. The other part, also for coding, it's important to have expectations clear, because greenfield projects are easier to do with this type of tools. Whereas if you run them on an existing code base, sometimes the people who wrote this old code bases don't know what this is, and there's this thing that reference that and reference this other thing, and that I've saw from a few internal discussions that even people who've been there for a while struggle to understand what the code does, but it's in production and bringing a few millions in revenue, so you don't want to break it. And of course, then the coding agent also struggled to figure out what to do there, because no one understood what it's about. So I would say that this is the balance. At least for some of our clients, it did work pretty well with either folks in leadership demonstrating how they're adopting like some use cases, somewhat making that part of the expectations of the PMs, like all PMs now should prototype with specific tools. Here's the training, here are the licenses, plus giving them single experimentation time. and getting the people who have found out a workflow that's successful to demo it to others, especially first in their area and then a bit wider.
All right. Thank you, Mirela. Thank you for the answers, and thank you to the audience as well for asking those questions. Very insightful, very informative. Now, as we move to the next section of this stream, I would like to let everyone know that at Prod People, we are hiring. And if you would be interested, or if this is something that does suit your fancy, we work hands on to help all of our clients discover and deliver great products, and we emphasize on doing this faster. So if you would love to become parts of the recruitment pipeline, the QR code on the left should help you find that. And if you would also like to stay more up to date with everything that people like Mirela and others within the organization have to say, have to share with the broader community, do subscribe to our newsletter with the QR code on the right. All right. And as we come to our close, I would like to also let everybody know that coming up next week, we will be welcoming um, Simone Killian, who is a product manager at Digital Service, where she will be talking about product management for the public sector. That's going to happen next week, same time. And with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for being here. Again, if you would like to see a recording of this live stream, it is available on our YouTube channel. And for everything else, all of our other social links are available as well. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining.